Welcome to the seventh video in our series on structured process improvement. This video will focus on what we do as we're doing this streamlining, this third step in the UDSO process, and getting ready to convert into the PDCA. And as we do this, we're going to be looking at eliminating waste in the process that we've identified in the first couple of steps of that process. So, discussion topics. What is waste? What are the types of waste? How does waste affect performance? And what is the waste that you experience in your process? Okay, so basically, customer perspective identifies wastes. All work that uses resources that does not produce value for customers is considered waste. Now, reducing or eliminating waste is a principal objective in all improvement activities. So we can have value-adding activities, work that increases the value of the product or service from a customer's viewpoint. Testing, diagnosis, treatment, etc. can be included here. Required non-value adding activities, work necessary for the business, but the customer is not willing to pay for. So if I'm talking about admissions in a hospital, for instance, maybe regulatory activities like certification, data entry, report production, invoicing, or something like this. Non-value activities, work that adds no value in the end and is not required for the business. So movement from one place to another, delay in service or just waiting, idle time, rework facilities that didn't get done right the first time. So all of those are things that are non-value adding and are suitable then for elimination. Now, Shigeo Shingo made this observation. He said the most dangerous kind of waste is the waste you do not recognize. And so one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to think differently about waste. Many organizations will say, oh, we're going to use the Toyota 7 wastes. Did you know when they were created? Do you know who created them? They were created in the early 1950s by the workers of Taiichi Ohno in basically an electromechanical engineering condition for cars. Does that apply to your organization? Are those definitions the same for your organization? We really need to think it out. Let's take a fresh look at what we mean by waste. Now, typically, when we start looking at waste the first time, we do an audit of the process, and we start seeing, okay, well, we start seeing that 5% of the waste work that we do is adding value. 35% is necessary, but it's required activities. It's necessary waste. We might be able to minimize it, but we can't get rid of it. Non-value-adding work, unnecessary waste, is about 60%. So we just did an audit of a factory in Ireland. And one of the things we found, just the waiting time in the process was 53% of the total time. And there were 7 other categories of unnecessary waste. And some of those were required and some not required. But when you look at 53% as waiting time, you see that's an awful lot of lost productivity. So the question is, what can we do to manage these? Well, waste management basically assumes a strategy by the type of waste we have. So value-adding work, we should optimize. Required non-value-adding work, we should minimize. Don't spend any more time than necessary to get the minimum job done. Then non-value-adding work, we should eliminate. Now, the priority should be eliminate the non-value-adding work because it's the bulk and we get a big productivity improvement. Then minimize the required non-value-adding work. And then finally, optimize the value-adding work because there's not that much to gain compared to the other elements in terms of improving productivity. So step by step, we should walk the 1,000-mile road and then follow that sequence in waste elimination. So then the question goes, how does your process create waste? Well, Taiichi Ohno talked about 3 different categories of waste. And these were called mori, mora, and muda. And so these categories of waste occur within processes, between processes steps. They can occur anywhere in an organization at any level of the Gemba. And basically in Japanese, the first character of these is all the same, mu. And mu means thou shalt not. It's like a 10 commandment law. And no waste from bad thinking. And this means don't have irrational waste because we make poor decisions. Mura, no waste from unbalanced working. This is flow waste. And this type of waste means we don't have good process integration. Muda, no waste in work discipline. This is process waste, where we don't follow standard work and we have poor operations. Now, each of those wastes can occur at any level in the organization. And the question is, what are the performance types of losses that we are incurring, but we do not actually count because we're not observing them? So, one of the things Taiichi Ohno said in his workplace management is insufficient work standardization and rationalization create muda, that's discipline. Inconsistency, that's the flow, mura. And unreasonableness, mori, in work procedures and work hours that will eventually lead to the production of defective products. Now, these three categories of waste can occur at all parts of the organization. However, in 2015, I made a speech to Keidanren, the Business Roundtable of Japan, and I made the following statement. Executive mori, waste associated with irrational decisions at the highest level of the organization, can create a state of systemic mura, waste in the flow of processes and systems because we're responding to those executive decisions that didn't make sense. And that will then generate localized muda, waste in workplace activities that the workers cannot eliminate. Now, one of the reasons that organizations do lean is that executives tend to believe that workers can eliminate all of the waste. They think that the waste is muda, but they don't see how much of the waste they've created themselves. I think this is an important part of our lessons to learn. So we see there's different types of performance factors that happen with waste. So we can have lags. This is the time difference in flows. So we see lack of cadence in new cycles, unevenness in workflows, imbalance in assigning work, misalignment of internal and external work, duration of cycle time that's excessive, and so forth. Those are lags in the time dimension. Leaks are where we convert value into non-value in the flow of the process. So we replace potential profit from an activity by costs that exceed the budget. And therefore we have, if you will, unabsorbed overhead. Conversion of product output into required rework due to quality losses. So productive work goes away because the time that we would have been making productive work, we now are doing rework. Surpluses in material that's not capable of conversion to a productive product. And so we have product and material that's not usable and we have to write it off. We have another leak in the system. Transaction costs that are consumed by frivolous actions. We have a leak then in management capacity or capability. Excessive work motion or transportation. So we have now a leakage in our handling processes or maybe even in inventory and excess material handling costs. So friction occurs when there's a lack of alignment in behavior, attitudes, culture, actions, or information timeliness. And these differences can be due to discord or lack of cooperation between functional work like R&D and manufacturing, internal business units like corporate and divisions, maybe internal competitions between individuals or teams, or distinctly different performance by primary and secondary suppliers of parts that we get excessive variation outcomes, or in the way we deliver on time to customers. So all of those are problems. And all of them lead to profit impact, which is a bottom line impact, or profit leakage is a bottom line impact. So working capital suffers from leakage when we have inefficiency in the process, overinvestment in resources, excess inventory, late customer invoice payments. Those tie up capital and reduce the cash flow and the on-hand balance of cash to be able to do the productive things that we need to do with the money that we're earning. This leakage creates trapped cash, where cash is invested and sequestered and misaligned, like invoices that haven't been paid, and then we get reduced liquidity that constrains the freedom to operate in managing our cash flow. So increasing cash conversion from this trapped cash situation into useful cash and working capital can accelerate our performance by overcoming process inefficiencies and economic restrictions that are implied by it. So now we take a look and we start seeing none of that relates at all to what we've been talking about with Toyota's definition of waste. And I think it's interesting. Here we see Taiichi Ohno talking about his definition of waste and what is the first step towards this. And they decided there were 7 categories of the waste the workers came up with. These are the 7 categories. However, Taiichi Ohno said that they miss the most important type of waste, human waste, or losses that occur because we have unmotivated people or people doing the wrong job. And therefore, we've lost the enthusiasm or the joy of work, and they don't care anymore. And so we've created a loss of enthusiasm among the workers. Now, those types of wastes are all 70 years old. And when we start taking a look at, we can observe different wastes in other organizations. So Toyota has their 8 wastes here. Rukizuro Kaku of Canon had a different set of wastes. He had 9 wastes. So he had rejects, parts inventory, indirect labor, so forth. And all of those were his wastes. And they're not the same as the Toyota waste. So we start seeing a difference. If we take a look at the Japanese Institute of Production Management, they have 14 wastes. Much of them are much more specific to the production process itself. And so here's a question. If we start taking a look at these 3 types of waste, the Muri cognitive decision, the Mura flow activities, the Muda workplace discipline, and we compare that to the 3 levels of the organization, daily management, work process, cross-functional, the business process, organization-wide, the governance process, we start seeing there are many different examples of waste. And if we look in there, the question is, who's responsible for waste elimination and management? And so we also see this other waste we haven't even mentioned here. Wasted energy, pollution, space, delays in service, wrong inventory, data that doesn't have integrity, duplication of effort, unnecessary meetings. And the question is, what is the Muda? What is the waste in our organization? So here's a discussion. Take a look at yourselves. Examine yourselves. The unexamined life is not worth living, according to the Delphi Oracle in ancient Greece. So every organization will have its own collection of waste. And it's important to clearly recognize those wastes and to develop a common understanding of what they mean and what should we do to eliminate them. Using these 3 Japanese categories of waste, identify specific things your organization is doing that create waste from a customer perspective. And is your team, complete the matrix on the next page with an emphasis on how waste is encountered in your local work processes. How many examples can you identify? So this is basically taking those 8 categories, and you can substitute others or add your own to it, and then to come up with examples. What is the name of the waste that makes sense to you? What are the examples that we can agree on so we can start building a common approach and understanding of what waste is and what we need to do to get rid of it? So enjoy that exercise. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the last video.